Welcome back to another episode of the Screen Addicts Podcasts. I am one of your co-hosts, Steven the Knuckle Puck Sosa. And unfortunately, we're not going to be joined by TV Viegas this week, as the man is a busy man and doing all kinds of jobs. So we're going to let him just basically sit on the Zamboni this week and sheath the ice, if you will, because this week we're going to be talking about hockey movies. That's right. It is the Stanley Cup playoffs, and we felt like it's a perfect time to do so. And what's weird is that we've talked about baseball, basketball, football, wrestling, but we've never gone and talked about hockey. But I couldn't do it by myself. So we have brought in an expert in the field of sports. Connor, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Steven. I don't know about expert in hockey per se. I definitely do enjoy watching it, especially playoff hockey. I spent way too much time doing that this weekend. But it's good to be here and great to talk about movies.
Yeah, me too, man. I always love bringing people in that have a certain specification of quality. And like you said, like you talk about sports, and you actually host a podcast of your own about sports. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so you can find me on the Triicky Takes podcast. That's Tricky with two eyes takes. It's me and two of my buddies. We grew up in the Panama City area all together, and we figure we talk about sports all the time. So why not just record it and air it out for everyone to hear? We're in a group called the Box Score Network, and it's a bunch of other great shows that are a lot like us. We do a lot of added features with them. You've got like the Simon Short podcast, the Gridiron podcast, Two Peas on a Pod. So a lot of good shows and a lot of good sports content. This time of year, we're mainly focused on baseball as a group, but definitely big into football, basketball, and soccer whenever those are all in full swing. So come check us out. It's, again, Tricky Takes, Tricky with two eyes, and the Box Score Network to find all the other great shows.
So that's cool that you cover all sports. I mean, that gives you content forever because
Year
I
round.
mean, there's just always something to be talking about. And like I said, we'll be talking about some hockey. So anybody that is a fan of hockey, you're gonna really love this episode. Our neighbors of the north, our listeners in Canada, are probably gonna really get a kick out of this episode. But and yeah, and of course we tie it into movies like we usually do. So we're gonna be ranking. You know what's funny is that we usually have a top three ranking system of movies. And, with hockey, they're not as prominent and heavily featured as other sports movies. Like we could rank off probably a top 10 football list, a top 10 baseball, basketball, literally name your sport, except hockey really doesn't seem to have that widespread appeal in terms of films. And I can't really explain why. Maybe it's something about how it's filmed. It's difficult to film a hockey movie. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it would be. I mean, anything could be filmed, but we're going to be basically just naming our favorite hockey films, and I think that'll be all right. We're going to also drop a couple of honorable mentions in doing so too. But before that, we are going to have our normal segments, including our recently watched. So, Connor, tell us everything that you've recently been watching.
Yeah, so I've been watching a lot of shows recently rather than movies, other than, the hockey movies that we'll be talking about later. I want to do my homework for the show. But the main one has been Warrior.
Mm,
It's the 1960s, 70s San Francisco Chinatown show. It
yeah.
is absolutely amazing. I mean, the fight choreography in it is some of the best I've seen since, you had those Ip Man movies with Donnie Yen.
Oh yeah. Donnie
Jen,
Yen. Yeah.
I mean Donnie
Yen.
Yen, yeah. I mean those were amazing, but this kind of rivals it with how they're doing it. It's a lot more gritty than that too. So it's definitely a darker show. I wouldn't watch it with any kids or anything, but the acting, the storyline, and I don't want to go into any spoilers, but uh, it goes into immigrants coming into San Francisco from China and the struggles they face just from the oppression of the Americans that are already settled in that obviously have their biases from that time period, as well as them fighting each other for control of Chinatown. So it's really amazing. I think everyone should go watch it. Unfortunately, it has not been picked up for a season 4 yet, and I really
Mm,
need it to.
hmm
But it's been one of my absolute favorites recently. I've been trying to put all my friends on it.
You're in a safe space with Warrior. Chris is obsessed with that show, and he
Okay,
has
good.
spoken about it many times. Matter of fact, I think even last week when we had Donald, our friend, on talking about stoner flicks, they mentioned Warrior too. My dad's mentioned Warrior to me. My own dad has seen this show, and I have yet to watch it myself. And I just, everybody keeps talking about how great it is because I guess it didn't premiere on Max, right? It premiered on
No,
another.
Cineplex.
Oh, okay. So that's the thing. It wasn't really that that prominent. And so yeah, okay. So yeah, it was a Cinemax original and then it came to HBO. That's what I guess once it came over there, it was a little bit more fan friendly in terms of availability because that
Yeah.
happens with stuff on Netflix. Like you'll see a movie or a show that was on some name your streamer and then when it comes over to Netflix or a more popular streamer, it blows up. And I guess that's what's happening with Warrior too. And oh my god, I'm gonna have to watch it. And I will. I want to. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to watch that because you said it's only 3 seasons, right? And there's not how
hmm
many episodes are there per season?
It's 10 per
Oh,
season.
so it's a
So
pretty quick
yeah,
watch.
I
Okay,
mean, you can knock it out in a weekend if you really want to.
all right, sounds good. So, what else you got?
Reacher.
Oh
So
yeah,
the Alan Richardson show.
mm-hmm.
My mom was a huge fan of the books, and
Yeah.
so as soon as season one came out, I was immediately hooked as well. So started reading all the books,
Oh yeah.
and with season two, just the way the stories are written and portrayed, and seeing, especially Alan Richardson, seeing him come from Blue Mountain State now to
Mm-hmm.
this completely different role that is a 100% 180
Yeah.
from Thad Castle. Seeing the way that he's matured and grown into that and can play a very convincing, like, tough guy, smart, very observant. He's almost like a more casual Sherlock Holmes type deal.
Mm-hmm.
uh, Definitely not the same level of brain power, but just in the observance and picking up on the small clues. uh, Kind of reminds me of like a Sherlock Holmes Batman combination type guy, and
Sure.
just makes for an exciting experience. I've always really enjoyed that, genre too.
So you said you read some of the books. Now, I mean, I'm a big Tom Cruise fan. I've gone on record. He's one of my all-time favorite actors. But when he was casted as Reacher, I started reading the books back when the first movie had come out. And I've
Yep.
only read the first 10 Reacher books. But upon the first book, I said 6'5", 250. That is not Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is like he's my size. He's like 5'8". Like there's no way that he fits that physical description. And I guess since he's a larger than life actor, that it was supposed to work in his favor. But then when you see Alan Richardson in his all like, I mean, the dude is a Hulk, and that's
Yeah.
exactly how Reacher's supposed to be. He's very brawny, very intimidating, and just from a physical standpoint, he already has you locked in where you feel like you can't best him. Not only that, but he's also really intelligent. So it's like it's going to be difficult to surpass anything that he would be bringing to you on an offensive level. But that is funny that, and the books are good. It was kind of weird that they went from the first book to the fourth one for season two, but I guess they were kind of looking at things cinematically, like which books would carry more entertainment value in terms of what they wanted to show for the Prime series. But I
Yeah.
don't know. I kind of feel like all the books are good. They're good
Well,
enough to.
it went from book 1 to book 11. Now I think we're going back to like book 7.
Oh my
So I mean,
gosh.
they're moving around with it.
Well, yeah, because it was Bad Luck and Trouble
Bad
was
Luck and
book four.
Trouble.
That was I think that was book 4, wasn't it, for season 2?
Oh,
I
maybe
don't know.
I
This
just
is
had a different list
it could
ordered.
be.
So I
This
mean,
isn't a book podcast, so I probably got it wrong. But all I know
and
is that
truthfully, it's not a series that you need to read in order.
no,
They, for the
right? You
most
can,
part, don't really tie in.
and that's the good thing about those books is like you could just pick
Yes.
one at random, and it's its own secluded storyline. And I guess like the only thing in part one was his brother, but his brother's already dead in the book, so it's like he has no lineage outside of that. So it's just kind of yeah. But it's a great series though. Seriously.
It is.
So,
Yeah.
you said any more shows or movies or anything like
Yeah,
that?
I do have one more. So, obviously, having a sports podcast, having me on to talk sports, it's a lot of the content I watch. But something I've been getting into recently has been F1 racing.
Oh,
And
okay.
so Netflix has a docu-series called F1 Drive to Survive,
Mm,
and it kind of follows the individual racers and teams throughout the 21 race season. And I've been getting really into that because it takes you on, just a deeper dive than you would normally get, kind of like the Hard Knocks for the NFL,
sure.
but for the entirety of the sport, because it's such a contained group. I mean, there's only 20 drivers at any given time, so you can really spend a lot more time getting to know everyone, getting to see the politics, because that, more so than a lot of the sports that we're used to seeing advertised and played on TV, has a lot more drama with the teams working against each other, with even the drivers that are on the same team, kind of having their own internal beefs against each other. So it's just really interesting to get into that entire world and kind of get a different perspective than what you get
Mm,
from TV. Because just
yeah.
watching the races, you don't really get to see a whole lot of their personality, a whole lot of the off track stuff going on. But with this, you get to kind of see uh, a bit more into the personalities of each of the guys, as well as the teams and their strategies, and learning more about the sport in general. So it's been really interesting for me. And if you're a fan of just sports in general, I would absolutely recommend it, because you'll just learn a lot, and you get to see a side of athletes that you don't normally get to see.
I've actually heard people talk about that show that have zero interest in F1 racing and them just being captivated by it. So that's a testament to the production team that put that show together, because I've heard a lot of really good things about that. Did you see, by any chance, did you watch Gran Turismo,
I
the
have
movie?
not. I
Dude,
do have it on my list, though.
yes, it's really, really good. And it kind of made me think of how you were describing the F1 series. I was like, yeah, this is kind of like how they film Gran Turismo. And it's a very kind of Rocky on wheels type of underdog story. And
Hmm.
of course there's a lot of science in the beginning of it when it pertains to the video games, because that's how they brought these racers in, the video game players. And it's just such a weird hybrid flick. And I don't know. You should definitely check that one out.
Well, the
But
crazy part about that is that's how they actually do train the real drivers. Is they
with the
put them in
simulators, right?
those. Yep,
Yeah,
because it's
that's
so
awesome.
expensive if they mess up the actual car, that
Yeah,
it's so
yeah,
much more cost effective that they can upload all their data and reproduce, the specs of the vehicle on the
yeah.
simulator, and it makes it
Well,
a much easier way to train.
and they film the tracks, right? So it's
Hmm.
like it's the real track that they're driving on. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I'll have to check that show out too. It's that's only one season or two seasons,
No,
or
so
how long
there's
has that been
6
on?
seasons.
Oh wow,
So
okay.
so it started during the 2018 race season, and
Hmm.
they've got up through last year's race
Okay.
season. So they're
Oh,
currently
okay.
obviously filming the
Oh, it's in real
2024.
time then.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
so
that's
so
awesome.
2018, or they release it the year after.
Yeah.
So like in December, January, they released the season about the 2023 race season.
Hmm.
So they keep up pretty good with it.
I love when shows do that. There's been a couple of series on Prime about it's the soccer series, the football series, like
Yes.
where they do the real time league series play. And there's even one that they did about the New Zealand black rugby team,
Mhm.
where it takes them on a season. That show was really good, man. I like that. There's
And
even
did you
one.
watch the Welcome to Wrexham? The one
No,
about
the
Ryan
the Ryan
Reynolds
Reynolds.
and
No, I haven't seen
yeah,
that one yet.
that's
There's
really
another
good.
one.
It's on
I heard
Hulu.
that was good too, and it's kind of similar to the one that Natalie Portman had, where she owned the Angel City FC women's soccer team there in Los Angeles. Like she bought out the
Oh, I didn't
women's
see that one.
soccer. Yeah, it came out a couple of months ago. I haven't watched it yet, but it looked really interesting. It's very much like Wrexham, where it's like, hey, we kind of want to buy this football club, and we're going to see if we could turn it around and stuff like that. I love stories like
Yeah,
that. It's just really good.
it's
And
just sports stories are the best.
they really are, man. Every time that we've had podcasts where we talk about movies, like every movie that we pick pertaining to name your sport, it's usually something uplifting, something that ends, because it's like some of the best moments in sports. Like personally, I felt this earlier last year when the Rangers won the World Series. Like I never would have imagined, I've been a lifelong Texas Rangers fan. And for them to win the World Series, I immediately called my dad back, he's back home in Arlington, Grand Prairie. And I was like, Pop, they did it, man. They did it. And he was like, I could just tell he was probably crying. He's like, I never thought I would see this in my lifetime, man. I've been a fan since day one, and it was just really. And he even works there with the Rangers, and he just loves the team, and for that to happen, man, it's just such a great, it's such a great thing. And being a Dallas Cowboys fan, I have to take the championship
Yeah.
victories where I can get. It's
I
because that's
wasn't
grim
gonna
as
bring
hell.
up football. I wasn't
Thanks,
gonna
man.
bring it up for you.
I appreciate it. That's that's really nice and kind of you, because oh my god, it's when we get into the football season, it's just sometimes it's because my co-host Chris, we also are a part of a fantasy football team, and like you are too. We just oh my god, there's no brutal banter more harsh than your fantasy football teammates,
Yeah.
but it's good stuff, man. It's all in good fun. All right. So, anything else you'd like to share that you've watched?
That's it. Other than, like I said, the hockey
The
movies that we're
hockey
going
ones.
to
All
get
right.
into later.
Yeah, man.
But those are kind of
Sounds
the
good.
main. I always have those comfort shows on in the background, but those are your basics, your Offices, your Parks and Recs, your Psychs. So nothing that needs to be talked about any more than it already has been, I'm
Well,
sure.
Psych, that's an interesting choice because that is a popular show, but then it's not. Psych is a really interesting show. How it was popular, but then it wasn't popular. It's almost as if it had like a particular niche audience towards it too, kind of like Monk. It was
Well,
just one of
well,
those
that's the
USA
thing.
shows.
So it had Monk and The Mentalist that were similar premises that were out at the
Right.
same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so each one captured like a section of the audience that would have watched any of the three. And I
Yeah.
think that really hurt in the end, all three of them. But Psych was just, it always drew me because James Roday and Dule Hill as
Mm-hmm.
the leads, their chemistry together, and with Corbin Burnson coming in playing the straight man, Timothy Amundsen, and just such a great cast and how well they all meshed together and knew
Mm-hmm.
their roles and played it week in and week out. It was just one of my favorites growing up. It was actually the first box set of a TV show that I ever got back
Wow.
when
Big fan.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, so my cousins brought it down and they left it at my house. That's how I inherited the. That's how I inherited the first 4 seasons of the
You're like, hey,
show.
did I leave my Psych
Nope.
box set there? No, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, as it's
That's
sitting in the
hilarious.
DVD player.
You know what? That is loyalty to your favorite shows, and I can respect that here on this Screen Addicts. Theft is another sign of a true Screen Addict. I knew we picked right. But what did you think of the movies, the Psych movies? Did you watch those?
Yeah, they're amazing because
They're good. Okay.
they pick up with the same energy. You can tell the cast never lost that connection that they had for each other. I think they still
Mm-hmm.
would meet up and do things occasionally, but they don't feel like just cash grabs like
Mm-hmm.
some reunion shows and stuff do. They actually do continue the story, especially with I'm sure Timothy Robinson had that crazy stroke where he has been bedridden and
Mm-hmm.
is just now starting to come back from it, but like they seamlessly incorporated that into the show and
Oh
kept it,
wow.
feeling truthful to how all the characters acted throughout. So it's been really nice to see that they've been able to continue it without it feeling overdone, like they should have
Yeah.
stopped.
That's awesome. I was curious about them. I mean, they looked interesting, but I was like, I've never watched this show, so I don't think I can watch the movies. I don't think I would understand
Yeah,
the movies.
they wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you do have to kind of know the people that are in it. So
There seems to be this like resurgence of USA shows around that time period that are just blowing up on Netflix. Like Suits. Suits
Mhm.
was one of Netflix's big streamers. I think it was last year, and it made it a household name so much so that they're talking about rebooting it on Netflix. And there were just all those shows around that time, that Burn Notice, White Collar, um, just shows like that. But it seemed like they had their run, but they don't really talk too many.
Oh, speaking of another show that kind of was from that time period, I watched the first season. Do you remember the show Eureka from the Sci-Fi
Yeah, on
Channel?
Sci-Fi. Yeah,
So that popped up on Amazon Prime as I was
there you
scrolling
go.
through the other day, and that is a show I wish I had found during its runtime. I mean, I would
Yeah,
have loved that as a kid because,
yeah.
I mean, now it's definitely a bit more corny and, you know, more dated than some other shows, but it still holds up really well for the storytelling and the humor and stuff. I have only seen the first season so far, but it is just another excellent show from that era that holds up surprisingly well.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's a great thing about these streamers is like you can find a show that for example, there's this one that I wanted to start called Louder Milk. And Louder Milk was a show that was just on, I don't know, some random channel like Sci-Fi, but then it came to Netflix and it blew up. And I was like, oh yeah, I remembered when that came out, how critically acclaimed it was, but nobody was watching it. So I don't know. I like when shows that are good are getting that chance to showcase what they were all about. I mean, I know it may not allow them to make more seasons of the show, but it is cool that the notoriety is getting out there for some of these. Well, yeah, man. So I guess for my recently watched, I didn't really watch too many things. I watched Fallout on Prime, just like a lot of people seem to have watched that show. It's so good, man. I just absolutely loved it. It's only 8 episodes, and I don't want to talk too many spoilers about it because people are still watching it right now. And I didn't play the game, so I'm not too keen on the Easter eggs throughout the whole show, but I represent a viewing community of that series that is just watching it blind. And I followed it really well because that's a testament to how the story is told. It's told from a perspective of, you know, coming into this and explaining what's going on, kind of broad brushes, I guess you could say. But overall, it doesn't really need to fine tooth anything. It's fine tune. I'm talking about those weird monsters' teeth or something. But it's just a good show. I really enjoyed it. There was another one that me and Sonia the Missus watched on Netflix called Baby Reindeer, and oh my god, this show is so intense. It's set in England, in Birmingham, and this this comedian. He's a would be comedian. He's terrible though. He's not a good comedian, and he's basically a bartender to make ends meet. While he's trying to become a successful comedian. Well, he befriends this woman he doesn't befriend her. He shows her an act of kindness. She comes in. She's real disheveled. She's a bit heavy set, and she's just looks so sad. So he's like, "Are you okay? Here, have a tea on me." And that's all he does. And then this sparks this crazy whirlwind of her stalking him. And dude, it just gets more intense. And the psychological um notions of the show are just so good. And it also like questions the the guy about how it gets to a point where he almost needs her for validation of being a person because he doesn't like it. He doesn't like that she's stalking, but then it gets into this thing where it's like, oh well, I've become dependent on this type of emotional. He's like emotionally handicapped and it goes into explanation as to what happened with him, why he's so closed off to everybody else, but he somehow doesn't mind this crazy stalker. And dude, it's a fantastic series. It's only I think it's 7 or 8 episodes, and it's a mini series. It's a one shot because it's done. And apparently what's even crazier is that the lead comedian, it's about his life. It's a true story. He wrote every
Oh,
single episode. And I think that's what makes it so much more appealing too, is that I was like, I wonder how much of this is true and how much of this is just kind of glorified for television. But either way, it's a great story. And yeah, even I was telling my dad about it. I wasn't trying to sell him on it or anything, but he texted me the other day. He's like, "Hey, I started that Baby Reindeer show." He's like, "Yeah, this girl's got problems." I was like, "Yeah, you think?" But it's have you heard of Baby Reindeer by any
so
chance?
I actually added it to my list earlier
Oh,
today as
okay.
I was scrolling through. But that is one thing I do love about like British show writers and producers and
Mhm.
stuff in general is that they close things off. Like they don't let something run too long.
Right,
They've got, concise seasons of a show and then concise amount of seasons and
right.
just really wrap up and bring a story to an end.
Absolutely, because yeah, we were just commenting about Fleabag, which is on Prime, the Phoebe, Waller-Bridge show, and 6 episodes, 2 seasons, or it's 12 episodes overall for 2 seasons, and that's it. I'm like, okay, well, wrap it up short and sweet, and every episode has a major impact, and I think that's good. I think that's good in that case. I always go back to the whole Breaking Bad thing where they offered Vince Gilligan, the showrunner, just a massive contract for I think 2 or 3 more seasons of
Hmm.
Breaking Bad. And he was like, "No. you can't run its course, because it ends up being something like The Walking Dead, where it just way overstayed its welcome. Not only overstayed its welcome, but then branched off into all these different miniseries. It's just like,
Yeah.
God, this is overkill, which is ironic considering this is The Walking Dead. It's just
Right.
it's such a bad thing. But I always refer to Vince Gilligan by saying short is better. Same thing with Jerry Seinfeld. Seinfeld was the number one rated comedy series, arguably, of all time, and it they were offering him more money for more seasons. He's like, no, we're good, we're done, end on top, and
Yeah.
look what it did to the legacy of both of those shows. So I think that's really good. And let's see what. Oh, I actually just watched the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, the new film starring Henry Cavill, and Alan Richardson is in this one. And you know what's funny about his character in this? He plays this Swedish, just badass bow and arrow hunter, assassin type of character. And he's a really good mesh of almost Thad like charm and simple goofiness with Reacher type power. So it's like he puts those characters together in a sense. And basically it's apparently a true story. And Winston Churchill was advising one of his deputy secretaries to create a team of specialists to go in and infiltrate these three particular war vessels or boats of the Nazis to destroy them, become ammunition, and clear a pathway. It gets into this really military type speak, which is impressive. Like if you're watching, it's like, oh, that's pretty cool. But then it goes over to Henry Cavill and his team. It's kind of like a Suicide Squad type of just motley crew, dirty dozen type. These guys are crazy, but they all have like a certain qualification that allows them to do what they do. And it was pretty good. I think it kind of runs into this situation where there's a lot more uh talk with some of the two of the team members going in to infiltrate the German party in the area, and it felt like Casablanca. If you've seen Casablanca, you know what I'm talking about. But it was pretty good. Guy Ritchie directed it. Snatch, Lock, Stock, The Gentleman, like really good director. And I enjoyed it. It was a little bit too long, but I think I'm sure there's other stuff that I watched, but we're gonna go on to some headlines. This is just me and you, and yeah. So here's some headlines for you. First one, right off the bat: Deadpool and Wolverine trailer. Tell me your thoughts.
I think it looks it. As soon as I knew that Hugh Jackman was going to be back as Wolverine, I knew that everything that they're putting on is exactly what I wanted from it.
Yeah.
Seeing the actual yellow costume,
Yeah.
the hair that's got like the finned look to it, where it looks almost like ears.
Yeah.
I mean, just everything about it is perfect. Their chemistry. I mean, we already know Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman have amazing chemistry.
Right.
It is top notch. And then just seeing Hugh Jackman back as Logan is amazing, because after Logan in 2019, when I thought that he was done with it, or 2018, whenever that came out.
I think it was 17, actually.
17, man, is it that?
Yeah, 2017. Yeah, man.
Jeez.
It's crazy. Aside from random cameos from here and there,
Right. But I mean, the end of that character, because he, if you're into the comics, kind of revitalized Wolverine just as a character in the comics in general, and really is kind of the pioneer for why we have all of the superhero movies from that first X-Men movie that they made with him. But Ryan Reynolds, I love his movies. I'm a basic white guy. He's entertains the hell out of me. Yeah. It is what it is.
Well, hey, I'm a complex Mexican dude, and I love his movies. So Ryan Reynolds speaks to everybody. He does. He's a good guy. But no, I looks I agree amazing. About I think it looks really good too. And just on paper, it looked great, or it sounded great. And then you see the trailer, and it validates all of these fears or notions that, oh, now that they're part of the Disney squad, is this going to be like a watered down? And shout out to Jeremy, one of our former co-hosts. He's a huge Deadpool fan, and he's got all the comics. He's had them for like 20 years, and he was just like, oh my god, Disney's going to neuter it, water it down. It's going to be PG-13. It's going to suck. Deadpool's going to suck. Now I'm like, I don't know, man. I think they're trying to keep it outside of Disney and put it in with Fox. Like 20th Century Fox is still going to release it so that way they can make it rated R and have that excuse. It's like, oh, well, it's not under the Disney banner, so it's going to be hard R. And then as soon as I saw that trailer, I just immediately asked him, like, I told you, man. You see? He's like, yeah, okay, I feel better. Even the shout out to Kevin Feige, Wade Wilson's basically like, Kevin Feige says we can't talk about cocaine in this movie. It's just so funny. And the fact that Deadpool is a character that just goes beyond the metaverse of things where he could talk about anything, go anywhere. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun now that he can play with the toys of Disney, because you can have anything from Disney to Fox to, I mean, he can show up on Hulu. I mean, you're going to see so many great Deadpool things. And I think that the marketing campaign or the marketing team for all of the Deadpool movies just get to have a blast because there's no restraint and they can go anywhere and do anything. It's like we mentioned last week about the Deadpool popcorn buckets, it's just, they're so raunchy. And I'm like, oh my God, that they had every intention of doing crazy stuff like that. And I just, after watching the trailer, I'm like, okay, this is going to be the best Deadpool movie. And it's definitely something that Marvel really needs in a bad way, because it seems like people haven't talked about Marvel movies in a while. And I mean, rightfully so. The movies, just in terms of quality, have taken a major dip. They're just churning them out. They're cranking them out. They're not really putting much effort into the story, into characterization, and even the special effects. And there have been some Marvel special effects technicians that have spoken out about how, oh, well, we have half the time now to perfect the CGI in some of these sequences, and they don't render as well because we don't have the time to make them look better. All they care about is just putting it out there. So I'm glad that this one, that they took their time with it, and yeah, I'm really excited to see.
I mean, with the Marvel properties we have gotten, I mean, it's been Madam Web, which was, I don't even think we need to talk about that. No Way Home was amazing. That
was
I'll
good.
give them
that was
I'll
really
give
good.
them all the props for that. But what Thor: Love and Thunder just didn't hit like Ragnarok did.
Flat. And Doctor
Strange. What was that other? Yeah, Doctor Strange fell flat.
The multiverse
for the expectations.
And that was a movie that I thought could have been great. Like, you could literally go anywhere in that movie, and they do for one scene, which I was like, oh, that was the best scene in a lot of Marvel movies. And more of that. Like, give us more of that. That's what we're here for. And they just kind of didn't. And the Marvels had a lot of criticism towards it too. I thought it was okay. I mean, it wasn't that bad, but yeah, I just think that this movie is going to really revitalize what's left of the MCU. So, and another headline that I had seen, speaking of Alan Ritchson, we were talking about him, and he had an interest. He full on said, I want to play Batman. Let me play Batman. And I thought, you know what? Yeah, let him do it. Because the first thing that I thought of was the animated series from the 90s, like the Batman animated series. Like, if you look at Bruce Wayne in that cartoon, he is a giant block. He is so big and so much bigger than everybody in that cartoon. And I'm thinking, that could be Alan Ritchson as Batman and Bruce Wayne. Just this massive block hulk of a man. And I would be down for it. Like, I'm down for anything that guy wants to do. Like, he I don't know. I just think that would be really good. What would you think of that as Richardson as a Batman?
I would love it. I think that the only issue I would have is I don't think he would have the mobility to be the, full martial arts. I think he'd be more of a brawler.
He'd probably have to lean down,
a full
though.
martyr. Yeah, but I don't know, because I liked Pattinson's Batman so much.
Yeah.
And I still do want him to have another turn with it to see what else they can do.
Well, he's going to be Batman in the Batman 2. Like, they're making a sequel to Robert Pattinson's, but they're also making Batman Brave and the Bold. So Brave and the Bold Batman 2 he's kind of like that. He's got that stocky block build. So I think that they might look into that. And plus, Alan Ritchson, he's already ingrained with the WB and DC. Like, he played Aquaman in Smallville. He played Hawkman in Titans. So it's just kind of like, he does have a certain claim to it if they wanted to
Yeah,
pursue that avenue. And with his jawline and his face, his mouth, like I can see that under the cowl, man. I'm like, the more I think about
I
it, I'm
can
like,
too.
I would be down for that. Reacher is Batman. Let's do it. Another headline here is the HBO announced that the Game of Thrones spinoff Snow no longer happening. They're going to take another tax write off on it, which is great because, yes, please take more tax write offs and not give us the properties that would probably make you a ton of money to not even have to worry about those tax write offs. But if anybody, House of the Dragon's still on the table, so that's not canceled or anything like that. But if anybody was looking forward to the Snow spinoff, they're not going to get it. I'm personally bummed about it, which sucks. And speaking of things that are canceled, Quentin Tarantino also made a statement saying that the movie critic is no longer going to be his 10th and final film. And not only is it not going to be his 10th and final film, he's not doing it at all. He hasn't really disclosed what it was that made him cancel this project altogether. It already casted Brad Pitt, and I believe Leonardo DiCaprio was in it too. I think so, but I know Brad Pitt was 100% locked in. So whatever that is, he did say that his 10th film is going to be his last movie, which is weird. It's a weird thing to say, but um, Clint Eastwood's in his 90s and he's still making movies. So it's like you
Right.
don't ever really retire from making films, but if that's how he wants to end it, that's cool. But apparently the movie critic isn't going to be it. People are like, "Oh, do Kill Bill Volume 3." I'm like, "Why are you going to make Volume 3? He's dead." You'd have
Yeah.
to call it something different. We'd have to be like The Bride or something. But I don't want to see that story anymore. That story is perfect as it is. Give us one more original story. Like Kill Bill is
Please.
his only sequel, and that's only a sequel because it was split up into two movies because the studio didn't want him to release one 4.5 hour long movie. So he's like, "Fine, I'll break it into two parts." And that was kind of a bummer. I'm glad I didn't know what the movie critic was going to be about because I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, I th- I do kind of understand, and I think I saw in an interview a while back whenever he was talking about only doing 10. I mean, he's kind of like what we said with Seinfeld, where he is still going out at the top. Like, he hasn't released a flop yet.
Sure.
I mean, you think Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, the Kill Bill movies, Django, The Hateful Eight. I mean, all these movies that he's put out, every single one is amazing.
Mhm.
And so I see where he's at, where he's like, I don't just want to keep churning out movies just to
Right.
make movies. I want to still stand by my work, still be able to be like, yes, I put a great experience on screen for people to watch so that, will hold up to the test of time. And so I kind of, I hate it because I love all of his movies, but I also, to a degree, understand because you don't want to get it where it's like Bruce Willis at the beginning of his career was releasing amazing movie after amazing movie, but then at the end with his health and other stuff that he had going on, the quality declined a lot.
Yeah,
So you can kind of see both sides of it.
that's true. I think that yeah, I think that's a good point. And while you're at your peak and just have the greatest film legacies of all time.
Right.
Speaking of film legacies that don't really stack up, that would be Zack Snyder's. This director just gets the brunt of
Ooh.
criticism at full charge. And in some cases, I guess I kind of understand. I could see it, but I mean, he's a very stylized director. He's a music video director. He's all about imagery and things that look cool on screen. And there's nothing wrong with that. Michael Bay cultivated his entire career based on that notion. And I think that Zack Snyder movies are actually really entertaining. And Rebel Moon Volume 1 came out last year. Very entertained by that. But apparently, Volume 2 came out this past week, and it has been a critical disaster. And it hasn't really even streamed that high on Netflix. I don't even think it reached number one in the terms of viewership. I know it hit the top 10, but apparently it's just a really, really bad movie. I haven't had a chance to see it yet. You haven't seen it yet either, have
I haven't. I was really
you? Okay.
excited for it though, because like you
Yeah.
mentioned, I loved part one. Part
Yeah.
one felt like a great movie. It was incredibly enjoyable. I mean, definitely setting up the what is that movie? The Seven Samurai, where they're
Oh,
going
yeah.
in to defend the village, and I
Right.
mean, very much taking from that, but in a unique setting. Like I'm okay with taking from old movies and kind of reusing a
Hmm.
theme because it's really how many original ideas are there to go off of, but an incredibly enjoyable movie. But yeah, seeing the reviews has me very worried.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
I
definitely
have
gonna
yet to
watch
see a
it.
good thing said.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
that's a bummer. Yeah, I'll definitely watch it, but maybe if I lower my expectations, it'll come out looking like Star Wars or something. You never know. But yeah, so I guess yeah, the headlines. I mean, if you had anything else to share, by all means, but that's all I had. There, basically, I guess the headlines can be put on ice because we're going to be talking about some
Oh.
hockey. Hey, Chris would admonish me for that, but he's not here to rein me
He's
in.
riding the pine this week. We don't have to worry
Yeah,
about
he's in the penalty box. So
it.
basically, we're going to be going back to hockey movies, and we're going to be mentioning our favorite hockey movies, and then just talk about a bunch of random other ones. So, but you know what? You're the guest. I'm going to let you go last. So I'll go first, and this should be a surprise to nobody that the Mighty Ducks franchise is my favorite hockey movie. Yes, it's cheating. I'm including 3 movies in one TV series, but it's okay. And you know what? We could talk about the real NHL team too if we want to. But basically, if I did have to pick my favorite Mighty Ducks movie, it's still, I don't know, man. Growing up in that time period, D2, when that came out, there was something about it that it was just so cool. It was so awesome. The new duck logo that was so great ended up being the real logo because it was just such a badass, iconic image. D2 was just so much fun. But as I get older and I go back, I rewatch, I'm like, Mighty Ducks 1 just still holds up the best for some reason. There's a lot of repetition in part 2. And yeah, there's a lot of cool shots, like, my nickname mentioned earlier, the knuckle puck and things like that. But the Mighty Ducks, it's just such a great, it's the Bad News Bears on ice, basically, is what it is. You get this troubled, quote unquote adult who is having just a terrible life. He's just miserable with himself, and he gets in the situation where, oh, I have to train these kids on how to play hockey. I have to be their coach. He learns his lesson. They all learn their lessons. It's good old wholesome fun. And the Mighty Ducks, it still holds up to this day. So much so that they even made that Game Changers Disney Plus show, which I will say, we were going to start season 2 because we did watch season 1, and we're like, well, we'll wait till season 2. It's not on Disney Plus anymore. They completely wiped it off Disney Plus because, yet again, a tax write-off. And they were like, well, we're not going to be making any more of this show. We're going to cancel it. And instead of having it sitting out there for streamers, we're just going to just pull it from the website, and we're going to be, I guess, collecting a tax write-off for it, which sucks because I was like, I didn't even see season 2. I mean, granted, Gordon Bombay wasn't going to be in it, Emilio Estevez, because there was that really weird, controversial situation where he didn't take the COVID vaccine, and they said, well, if you're going to be on set, you have to have been vaccinated. He's like, okay, well, I don't want to take it, so I just won't be on set. You can replace me. That's when they brought Josh Duhamel in, not to play Gordon Bombay, but to play another coach or another character or something like that. But I mean, without Gordon Bombay, man, it just doesn't work, and it was very unfortunate. And season 1 was okay, but again, I think I had to be a lot younger to really appreciate the Game Changers like I did when I was, hell, even the Mighty Ducks cartoon in the 90s was pretty cool. They were like superheroes. You remember they
Yeah.
had that, like, that the duck mask turned into this like massive jet, like the
Yep.
X-Men jet or something, but it was so weird. But yeah, it was great. But yeah, the Mighty Ducks, hands down favorite hockey movie of all time. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
I mean,
So
look, it's an amazing. It's everything that you want about a '90s kids sports movie.
sure.
I mean, it hits all the high points. The troubled coach, the kids that lose faith in him after he won them over originally, only to win them. I mean, it's got all
Yeah.
the highs and lows that you expect, but it just feels right. I mean,
Mhm.
I rewatched them recently, getting ready for this episode, and like it's just nostalgia. It immediately, as soon as you watch it, you're like, okay, yeah, like I remember why I loved these characters. Like they're all likable people. It's a compelling story, even though it's one that we've seen replayed over and over and over. But Emilio Estevez does a great job. I can't remember his name, but he played Foggy in Daredevil as the
Oh,
goon for
Eldon
the team.
Henson.
Eldon
Yeah.
Henson
Fulton.
coming in.
Fulton.
Fulton.
Yeah.
Yes, but I mean, just a great shot. Keenan Thompson coming in
Yeah.
and being a heckler to getting picked up on the team. But I think out of those, D2 has got to be my favorite too, because they bring in people that make up really the heart of the movie. I think they lost some of the dead weight from D1, and
they got cut from
I
the
mean,
team.
I mean, it just in terms of what they brought to the cast and the crew, and kind of what they added to the actual movie. But I think that, adding in those special the ringers for Team USA,
Yeah.
the cowboy and the goalie, the other
Julie the
bruiser,
Cat Gaffney.
yeah, Julie the Cat Gaffney, Ken Wong the figure skater. I mean, just bringing in these
Yeah.
these extra characters and how seamlessly they meshed them in with the team, and
Yeah.
giving them the big bad Icelandic team, the dentist as the villain. It's just just a great kids movie, great 90s movie. We'll be watching it again.
That's a really good point about the new characters, is that they transition into the team so well that it almost seems like, you think about it, weren't they in part 1? I mean, no, they came in part 2. I mean, that's a really good point, because they fit in so well that it's almost as if they belong the entire time. And yeah, oh, something that really threw me off about D2, especially when I was a kid when I watched it, was that Hans, the old man that runs the skate shop, right? How in part 2, Joss Ackland wasn't available to film the movie. So they brought in this other like Swedish character or Swedish actor to be like Jan, his brother. And I'm like,
yep.
I'm like, what? Huh? Where was this guy the whole time?
Yeah,
like
never
was like,
mentioned in the first one.
No, I was like, shouldn't he be working at Hans? But they mentioned that he was in Sweden and that Hans went back home to care for a mama. And I was like,
yes,
what? I don't know. It's so funny because Joss Ackland, he's a character actor too. And whenever I watched, because obviously I saw Mighty Ducks before I saw a lot of other movies, and Joss Ackland was actually the villain in Lethal Weapon 2, and he was a mean son of a bitch in that movie. So when I saw him in Lethal Weapon 2, it was after I had seen the Mighty Ducks. I was like, oh my God, Hans, what are you doing? Don't do that. But man, and it's so funny because there's a line, he's got that deep voice, and it's a great voice. And like, I'll randomly just say something to my dog or my son, and I'm just like, I'm proud of you, Golden. Just like, I just love that cadence of his voice. But yeah, so I mean, did you watch D3 yet?
I did. So I finished it about an hour ago.
Oh,
now.
Damn. You were doing the prep work.
I told you I was taking my notes. I was doing
Respect.
it. But that one I didn't like because it felt like they ruined Charlie's character for the first half of that movie. It felt like a real character assassination because he was he was the core of the team. He was the heart and soul of the Ducks. Right. And as soon as they go to that prep school and he's like, oh, well, Gordon Bombay is not our coach anymore, he becomes a little angsty teenage diva.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't the Charlie that we'd grown up through 2 movies being, the centerpiece of the team that was really keeping everyone together. Whereas, I mean, I guess they had to flip it on its head to do something different, to have the rest of the team be the ones to bring him back. But
he had a major identity crisis in that movie too, because it's just kind of like, bro, you're at a school now. Like, not everything is going to be the Ducks. But then that's what they do at the end. They're like the Eden Hall Ducks. I'm like, oh my God, they're like really forcing the whole Duck thing.
They foreshadowed it by that girl he starts dating is at the beginning calling for the petition to change the name because it's
the
offensive.
Warriors. That's true. I didn't even think about. See, that's the shit you pick up as an adult. I never would have got that.
That's the shit you pick up on.
That's hilarious, and that is true because, but he's like, well, Coach Bombay, you're the rookie here. We've all been playing for all these years, and I always thought was something interesting too. It's like, how is the team from Minneapolis going to stay together for the Junior Goodwill Olympic team to this college? Like, everybody gets to stay together. I'm like, man, that's some camaraderie right there. But and another thing about Joshua Jackson was that when Dawson's Creek started, he played Pacey Witter. It took me forever to get past the fact that was Charlie Conway. You want to talk about identity crisis? Like I was locked in with him as Charlie Conway forever, and it took a couple of seasons of Dawson's Creek. Now I don't even see Joshua Jackson as Charlie anymore. I see him as Pacey, and he could do Fringe, he could do Dr. Death, he could do whatever he wants. He's still Pacey Witter to me. That's how much better he is in Dawson's than he was in the Mighty Ducks. But man, great franchise.
Yeah.
So let's hear what you have, sir.
I mean, as a sports fan, it's got to be Miracle.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie Miracle, which if you don't know, how do you not know? It's the 2004 Kurt Russell movie about the miracle on ice, which was when United States Olympians were not professional athletes. So we were sending amateurs and kids straight out of college to compete. And this was after we had lost the last 4 Olympics, Winter Olympics. We had lost the gold medal in hockey to the Russians. And I mean, this is 1980s, the height of the Cold War. I think they had just invaded Afghanistan at the time. So there was just a lot of tension in general. And this is, Kurt Russell as Herb Brooks, who was on the 1960 men's hockey team that won gold for us. So that was pretty cool that he actually ended up getting to go back and be the coach later on. But it gets to see him come in and how he kind of changes everyone's perception of what, we were capable of, because we had a 0% chance. Nobody was supposed to ever beat the Russians in hockey. Like, that was their sport. They had the same team for like 15 years. And I mean, their goalie was the best in the world at the time. It was almost unheard of to even score on him. Their center, Mikeshov, was the best in his position. I mean, they would come in year after year and boat race the NHL All-Star team in a showcase. So, I mean, just to see the story take place and knowing that Herb Brooks actually got a chance to come in and consult on this and be like, hey, yeah, this is kind of how it went down. This is what we did. This is how we coached on it, and show. I mean, it's the quintessential sports story. It's the underdog that gets to come in and beat the champ and make everybody happy and be in a spot that no one expected. I think it just makes it so much better because of the time period that it actually occurred in, and all the biases and the tension that was building up and had been building up for so long, to go in and be able to be like, hey, we're America. We still got your Russia. Like, this is where you're not going to come into our nation and beat us. We're going to come home and take the gold and everything that you thought that you had us beat on. So it's just really exciting. And just as a sports story, it's you can't make them better than this.
I absolutely agree with you. That movie is so good, so captivating, and yeah, it is better that it is a true story. It makes it so much better. Gavin O'Connor, the director of the movie, actually went on to make other great sports movies like Warrior with Tom Hardy, the MMA movie, which is such a phenomenal film. And he also did The Way Back with Ben Affleck, the basketball movie that came out a couple of years ago. Yeah, so Gavin O'Connor's got a really good knack for telling good sports stories. And I think with Miracle, how it looks like how they shot the movie. There's a certain grainy polish to it that makes it feel so much more set in the 80s. And the thing about Miracle that I thought was funny was like it played into that trope that movies like Remember the Titans or Glory Road were doing, where there was a lot of infighting. You had the team would be separated by 2 warring factions and some kind of internal turmoil, and obviously it isn't as heavy as it is in Remember the Titans or Glory Road when it deals with racism and stuff. But I always thought that it was interesting how they're like, okay, how are we going to separate these guys, and how are we going to put them in a situation where they have to work together? Oh, you're going to have a team from Boston and one from Minnesota. I'm like, yep, that'll do it. Because those guys, man, up north are so rabid about their hockey. And I absolutely, I love the passion for it. And I just want to play hockey. The accents are so good. And I don't think that any of them are really too over the top. I mean, because a lot of those guys are Boston, so they got to talk Boston. And there are things that Kurt Russell and it's probably because it's just Kurt Russell, but hearing him talk as Herb Brooks is kind of funny too, because with opportunity, just I love how he
Yep.
talks in that movie. He really full on becomes Herb Brooks in that movie. And
Well, it was lucky because Herb actually got to consult on it.
right.
I mean, it was unfortunate because he passed in a car accident like right after principal photography.
Oh,
So
that's right. He didn't even get to see it, right?
no, he
Oh,
didn't.
that's so
So I think
sad.
the end, there's a dedication to him at the end. It says he
That's
didn't
right.
get to see it, he lived it.
Oh, dude, that gave me chills. I completely
mean-
forgot about that. That's good stuff right there. Yeah. So if
Again,
anybody,
it's sports. Like you can't write it
I
any
think it's
better.
on Disney Plus because it's a
It
Disney
is.
property. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
So anybody who's never seen Miracle, they should absolutely go to Disney Plus and watch that movie. It's such a good movie. It's a little long. It's like almost 2.5 hours long.
Yeah,
I remembered it
it's
being
pretty lengthy.
but it tells the full story, man. It tells these guys coming together at tryouts and how they have to work through their stuff together, how they become a team, and then and the hockey footage too. It's like very
It's
Friday
really
Night
well
Lights.
done.
Yeah, it's like that kind of documentary style. So it looks like somebody's like they're filming a real game, and it's shot so well. Everything's so good. Toby Emmerich, who plays the coach, the assistant coach, he's really good as well. And that's a perfect hockey
Patrick
movie.
Patrick Dempsey is in there.
Is he really?
He plays Mike Rizzo. He
No,
plays.
that's not Dempsey. That's
Dempsey. That's Patrick Dempsey.
McDreamy. He's too old. Are you sure? You might want to double
Dempsey.
check that.
I got it pulled up right here.
No, it's Jack Dempsey. Jack Dempsey.
They might have it wrong on here. Then,
yeah, I don't think that's right because Patrick Dempsey.
It's Patrick O'Brien.
Oh,
Dempsey.
okay. I was like, I think there's a Jack Dempsey in there too somewhere, but
Yeah.
he just put them together. It's the perfect hockey player.
The perfect hockey player.
Is McDreamy. But yeah, I absolutely love that movie. So, okay, Mighty Ducks, Miracle. I think we have perfectly captured two great hockey movies. So, do you have any honorable mentions? Any other hockey movies that you really like that you'd like to shout out? I mean, we probably could have done a top 3 now that I think about it, but yeah, go for it.
Have you seen the Goon movies?
Oh yes, with Stifler. He's so good in those. Doug Blatt. There's a Glatt. I don't remember, but that dude. Oh my god, yes, so good in those movies.
Only thing that I don't like about those movies is Jay Baruchel, but that's just personal.
But it sucks because he wrote those movies too.
I know.
So he had to have a prominent role in both. And
I think he's such a good creative person.
Yeah.
But the characters he writes himself, I hate.
Yeah. He wrote himself into She's Out of My League too, didn't he?
Yeah.
That's how he got Alice Eve. I knew it.
Yep.
That nerd.
Yep.
But yeah,
I mean, that's such a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, who was it? It's Liev Schreiber. Whenever he's in there, he's so good, and you can tell everybody. And what's funny is that Sean William Scott in that movie, he's so reserved and quiet and just so calm, and that's something that he's never known for being. You've got Steve Stifler here, and he's not even saying a word. This is the complete opposite. This is the anti-Stifler, but. Yeah, both Goon movies are really good. I was glad when they made Goon 2. It was a sequel that I never knew I wanted because it's just as good as the first one. And yeah, I mean, you want to talk about hockey movies. I mean, you got to go back to Slapshot with Paul Newman and the Hanson triplets. I mean, that hockey movie, it's not really ingrained into any feel-good sports story drama. It's just a straight up slapstick
that's just
comedy.
A brawler movie,
and they just
slapstick.
beat the shit out of each other. And they're like, "Well, we got to bring more people into this rec league that we have here." And yeah, Slapshot's a great one. If Chris was going to be on the recording, he wanted the Mighty Ducks, so I was going to let him have it. But I was going to take Youngblood, the Patrick Swayze and Rob Lowe. Well, I guess Rob Lowe is Youngblood, but man, I have always loved that movie. It's set in the 80s. Rob Lowe is this young, fast hockey player that goes to training facility. It's Keanu Reeves, one of his first movies.
Mhm.
Keanu Reeves is heavily in the French accent, man. Like that's how he talks in the movie. And I'm
The
like,
whole movie.
what? Who are you? I'm like, Neo needs to get out of this version of the Matrix ASAP. But he's so funny in that movie. But Youngblood is such a badass movie. It's like such a precursor to something like Goon, where the coach is all about standing your ground and fighting. Like he almost encourages his players to fight rather than to play. And what's the bad guy? Raki is this
Yep.
like this goon. He's a goon, and a goon is a term for any just musclehead that will power his way through the team to help you get an offensive position. And he's just this goon that's tormenting Dean Youngblood, and it just ends up in this like Rocky movie where they just fight Blades of Steel style. But and Blades of Steel is just this amazing Nintendo game. If anybody's ever played Super Nintendo Blades of Steel, respect. But yeah, Youngblood. I mean, I thought I had a list here of stuff.
So I know it's not a movie, but Shorzy, the Hulu show.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, it is.
No, TV's
Yeah,
definitely on there. Yeah,
I mean, Shorzy has and Letterkenny as another show because it does have a lot of hockey in it. But Shorzy just being dedicated to hockey and what they've done and created kind of almost a universe from that show, and with Shorzy and actually showing the hockey itself, I think they might really be playing. I haven't looked into it to see if they really are, but the way that they film it and show it and really do a lot more, kind of like Friday Night Lights, where Friday Night Lights actually had a lot more of the actual sport being played. You see a lot more of the action of the game. And that's something that I personally enjoy as a sports fan. Like, I don't just want to see like the off court drama and stuff that they have, but with something as difficult as hockey, you wouldn't expect them to be able to film a whole show that's just dedicated to, we've got entire episodes where it's just a game that you're watching almost unfold in real time, obviously with the cuts and everything, but the quick humor that they have throughout, I don't care how many times I watch it, I can get caught off by just a quick response that you don't catch the first 2 or 3 times you'll watch the show. You'll be like, oh my gosh, they're just firing back and forth for 3 minutes without a break. No cuts or anything. So that's a really great show.
I heard that was good. I still need to watch Letterkenny, man. I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen Letterkenny?
Yeah, that's the reaction I usually get.
Oh.
I know. I need to watch it. I plan on it. It's in the Hulu queue, but and then now I saw that spinoff Shorzy. I'm like, great. Now I got to watch that when I watch Letterkenny. But yeah, I hear they're both great. Another good hockey movie that I just thought of was Mystery Alaska. Mystery Alaska came out in the late 90s. Russell Crowe's in it, I believe. And basically what it is, it's this rec team who plays hockey up in Mystery Alaska. They get selected to have a game against the New York Rangers. So what they do is they find the pond that they usually play at in Mystery Alaska. They revamp it into a rink. It's a promotional thing, right? It's kind of like Rocky fighting or Apollo Creed fighting Rocky in the exhibition. It's bitching, man. Exhibition match. And that's what the Rangers wanted to do. They were kind of like, oh, let's tune this team up. It's a tune-up game for us. We're just gonna pound these guys into the ice. But to Russell Crowe and these guys, I mean, they love the game. They're passionate about it. They played it their whole lives, but they just never had that opportunity to play pro. But they were like, you know what? This is our one chance. Let's show them what we got. And Mystery Alaska is definitely a great hockey movie. You know what? I haven't seen that in such a long time. I might actually watch that when I'm done here.
Yeah, I hadn't checked that one out before, but it sounds...
it's really good. It's really good. I think that from what I can remember about it too is like, I mean, there's not a lot of hockey action in it. I think a lot of it deals with the social lives of the Mystery Alaska residents, and kind of the things going on with their girlfriends and wives and stuff like that, their families. And I don't think, from what I can remember, I wasn't really too engaged with that because I was in high school. I didn't really care about that kind of stuff. I want action, Mighty Ducks 4 D4, please. Never got it, but yeah, that one was pretty good. Yeah, man, I think that. Oh, you got
Hold on,
another one?
I got one more. The
Yeah.
Tooth Fairy with
Yeah,
Dwayne the
that's
Rock
true.
Johnson and
That
Peyton
is.
List.
Oh my
Is
god.
it?
No, she was in the game plan. Wait,
Yes,
that
that's
that was the
right.
football one. No, the Tooth Fairy is where he's a hockey player and he
Yes.
becomes the Tooth Fairy. Oh my god. I can't believe. I mean, I guess I understand why I forgot that movie.
Yeah.
Man, The
I mean, that
Rock
was
was
when
going through it.
that's when The Rock was pumping out all of those Disney movies.
Yeah. Yay, man, the game plan's actually really good. That's a
The
bit
game plan is good.
sentimental. It's a really good movie, and that's sentimental because it reminds me of my daughter, and she loves that movie. And I remember when we watched that in the movie theater when we still lived in Texas, man. So we go way back with the game plan. But I can't sign off on the Tooth Fairy. That was pretty rough. Um,
Yeah, it was.
oh, and hey, we can't mention hockey without mentioning Jason Voorhees, one of the most
Oh.
popular iconic hockey players of all time. That mask, man, the
That
the
mask
goalie mask,
plays.
it does. I mean, he would definitely be sent to the penalty box
Oh
for
yeah,
life. But
he's getting more than 2 minutes for
yeah,
slashing.
yeah, 2 centuries. But yeah, that. I mean, I couldn't even believe I forgot to mention Jason, but yeah, man. Well, I think that's gonna wrap us up. All three periods are over. We're the Stanley Cup. Do you have a favorite in the Stanley Cup going on right now?
So my favorite right now is the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah.
I think they won it last year. They were in the playoffs last year, or no, the Golden Knights won it last year.
Mm-hmm.
But the Avalanche they're a great team, kind of dominating all throughout the season, and there's really no reason why they shouldn't keep it up. The Bruins are kind of my sleeper pick.
Mm-hmm.
So they'd be a team to kind of watch out for if you gamble, which this is not gambling advice, as I will say on my own show. They've got a higher odds, so you'd get more money if you put it on them. But I'm not saying that you should because I still don't think they're going to win. But
It's like McConaughey and Two for the Money. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm making suggestions. It's up for
yeah,
you to take those suggestions if you want to. I'm a Dallas Stars fan, so
obviously,
obviously, but I always want them to do their best. I remember, what was it, last year, the year before, they made it to the finals and lost.
yeah. It was
Uh,
last year they lost to
it
the
was last
Knights.
year, yeah. Oh my god, that pissed me off. It was terrible, and they were doing so good too.
They
But
were. I
you
thought
know,
Dallas was going to win a championship.
me too. They've won one before, but it's been a really long time. And I think they beat. Oh wait, no, they beat the Sabres when they won
Yeah.
their NHL title. But yeah, that was in the '90s, so it doesn't count. I was like, it's got to be in this century at this point to count. But yeah, okay. Well, that sounds good, man. I appreciate you coming on the show. So again, tell us, your name, where to find your show, where we can listen to it, and all that stuff.
Yeah, so my name is Connor. Like I said earlier, I'm on the Triicky Takes podcast. That's Tricky with 2 I's Takes. We're part of the Box Score Network. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, really wherever you get your shows. And we are just a general sports podcast. So if you like any sport, we will talk about it. We've talked about golf, tennis, a lot of football and baseball, basketball with the playoffs going on now, hockey with the playoffs going on now. Touch on a little bit of soccer around World Cup time and things like that. I mean, shoot, we've even talked about cricket once or twice. So
Nice.
we try to touch everything. UFC, especially with that big card we just had, UFC 300.
Oh yeah.
Which was amazing. So I mean,
did you watch that card?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
I was watching it. It was amazing.
I'm not gonna
Probably
lie. I thought, like, in comparison to like UFC 100, UFC 200, I thought the card as it stood kind of fell a little flat, right? But then when we watched it, I was like, oh my god, top to bottom, like Cody Garbrandt in the early prelims starting off, like, this was a great card. That was probably one of the best cards that they've had. I mean, period. It was top to bottom great.
I was the same way. I was like, oh, they're just throwing, crazy. They're just throwing fights on here. They're like, oh, it's 300. We have to have 3 championship fights on this card. But then the fights all delivered, which you don't see very often in any major, boxing, UFC, PFL, whichever league you're looking at, you don't see every fight deliver like that. So
Yeah.
it's really, really
Hey,
impressive.
let me ask you. So I'm a pro wrestling fan. My entire life, I've been a pro
Mhm.
wrestling fan. We even had a whole episode 2 weeks ago about WrestleMania and our favorite pro wrestlers in movies and stuff. And I, for some odd reason, when I see in the UFC that BMF title, I don't like it. I don't like it there. It's such a gimmicky thing to do. That would be like having the NFL and we're gonna have this like random weird, not Lombardi trophy, but another the baddest team trophy, or something, and giving it to the Las Vegas Raiders or something stupid like that. I hate when they do stuff like that. And WWE, you want to do that stuff, you go for it. You do, because that's where it sets and that's where it belongs. I don't know why I have such a hang up on that fake
No,
goofy title. It just doesn't make sense.
no, the BMF title, I think you kind of have to understand, but they give that to like the guys that you do not want to fuck with.
Well,
Like that is,
sure.
but I mean, it is because they're the guys like you saw at the end of that fight. Like, yeah, Max Holloway was winning the
Dude,
fight
that
the whole
was
time. He
yeah.
points at the ground, and they both are just going to stand there and they're going to throw.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't
And to
matter
knock
what
him
else has
out
happened.
with 1 second left was
Yes,
just insane. That was crazy. I mean, I get why they do it. I don't know. I just think it
but
just
the thing is, like, it changes. So, like, that's not just because you've got it in one weight class doesn't mean like, okay, in like 2 years, if the guys in this weight class are struggling, we're going to move it up. So like right now it's in the middleweight weight class, but like say we've got two light heavies that are like the guys, they're going to be fighting. One of them's going to get that belt, and it counts as the main championship belt for that class.
I was
So it's
wondering
not
about
just
that too, because I didn't know. I was like, what is this, like a specific weight class that it stays? So Max
I
Holloway,
believe
I don't know.
it can
It
switch
seems
weight
like they've been
classes.
defending it and stuff. I don't know. It's just I just don't like it. I'd rather that stuff stay in WWE. But yeah, overall that was a great card. So I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
I
you're
hadn't
fine.
talked to anybody other than Sonya about the UFC because she watches it too. She, a quick story about that. When she first started watching, because I've been watching MMA for a long time, and I was watching one of the events and she came in there and they were doing some ground and pound, real vicious stuff. And I remember her saying like, "Oh my gosh, that's so mean. That just looks so mean. It looks so, you know what I mean?" Like she's just like, it looks so mean. To now, oh my god, 180. When Max Holloway knocked out Gaethje, she was like on her feet, like, yes. I'm like, it's just such a 180. And I explained to her, I'm like, and she still hates like ground game. She's like, I want them on their feet. I'm like, God, now you're bloodthirsty. You don't even like, it's part of the sport. She's like, I don't care. Stand them up, Herb. I want
No,
to play hockey, Herb.
as
Oh,
I've
that's the wrong
watched
Herb.
more of UFC, though, I've come to really appreciate the ground game and what
Yeah.
those guys can do.
Well, I'm a wrestler. I wrestled in high school and college, so
Yeah,
I like see ground game stuff as like super important, and I'm like, okay,
but
and I
also
can
like
engage.
knowing how much of a toll even just holding those positions takes
Yeah,
on their body,
it's exhausting.
paired with the hits they're taking, like it's incredible what they can
Yeah.
do.
All right. Well, again, Connor, we appreciate it, man. We're glad that you came on. If you want to listen to the Screen Addicts podcast, we are currently streaming on every available platform that you could find us on. Apple, Spotify, Audible, Amazon. I think Google Hangouts is finally, or Google Podcasts is finally done. So they have made their final transition into YouTube podcasts. I checked the YouTube page, and now apparently everything's been integrated naturally. So if you were listening to our show, Triicky Takes, on Google Podcasts, make sure you go and check YouTube Podcasts and subscribe there. If you want to check out my other show, Real Problems, it's actually doing really well, and I really appreciate all the listeners for that. That can be found everywhere. Check out Chris, my buddy Chris, his other show, Boyd's Backyard Podcast. He's talking on there. Man, the man is a culinary master. This dude, he can grill like I mean, he literally does grill in competitions. I mean, that's how good he is. I can't even cook on like one of those portable. It's just embarrassing. I took a picture of it from him one time. He's like, dude, I'm gonna fly there, throw that away for you and stuff. But yeah, so check out Boyd's podcast, Boyd's Backyard Podcast, where he interviews other cooks and give their culinary tips and stuff. And again, Connor, appreciate it for all you